On a cold evening, beneath the fading glow of the setting sun, two frail twins sat huddled together on the side of a crowded street. Their faces, though marked by hunger and hardship, still carried a spark of innocence that life's cruel storms had not yet extinguished. The boy, Amir, held a piece of stale bread carefully wrapped in a torn napkin. His sister, Amina, glanced at it longingly, her small hands clutching her rumbling stomach. But she said nothing. For them, that single piece of bread was not just food. It was survival, a rare treasure in a world that had given them so little. As they prepared to split it between themselves, a faint sound drifted toward them, a voice, soft yet strained. They turned their heads and saw an old blind beggar, sitting only a few feet away. His clothes were ragged, his eyes clouded with blindness, and his hands trembled as he stretched them out, whispering for a morsel of food. The city's crowd swept past him as though he were invisible. No one spared him a glance, let alone a coin. Amir looked at the bread, then at his sister. Amina's eyes met his, filled with both hunger and compassion. Without exchanging a word, they both knew what they had to do. Amir broke the bread in half and slowly placed it in the beggar's trembling hands. "Here, uncle," he said softly. "It isn't much, but please eat." The beggar's cloudy eyes filled with tears he could not see, but could feel streaming down his face. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Bless you, children, bless you for this kindness." The twins smiled faintly, though their own stomachs twisted in pain. What they did not know, what no one around could have imagined, was that the frail old man before them was no ordinary beggar. Behind those worn clothes and clouded eyes was a man who once sat at the top of towering glass buildings. His name was Sir Idris Al-Rahman, a billionaire who had mysteriously disappeared from public life years ago. Many thought he had died, but in truth, he had chosen to vanish, disillusioned by betrayal and false friendships, determined to learn whether compassion still existed in the world without wealth as a disguise. As the children moved away to find shelter for the night, Sir Idris clenched the bread in his hands, his heart pounding not from hunger, but from the warmth of their sacrifice. He had seen men with fortunes walk past it without a second glance. But here were two starving children, orphans with nothing, willing to give up their last meal for him. That moment planted a seed in his heart, one that would soon change their destiny forever. The night grew colder. The twins found refuge under an abandoned wooden stall. Amir wrapped his thin coat around Amina, whispering, "One day, I'll make sure you never sleep hungry again." She smiled weakly, her face pale, and leaned against him as they both drifted into uneasy sleep, their dreams filled with the memory of the blind man's grateful voice. Meanwhile, Sir Idris did not sleep. Sitting alone in his hidden mansion on the outskirts of the city, a place where his true identity was still intact, he called upon his most trusted aide, the only one who knew of his double life. "Find me those children," he ordered firmly. "Find the twins who gave me their bread tonight." The aide bowed and left immediately, for when Sir Idris gave such a command, it was never to be ignored. The following day, as the twins tried to earn a few coins by carrying baskets in the busy market, they felt the weight of exhaustion pressing on their small bodies. Just as Amir was about to collapse from fatigue, a black car stopped near them. A man in a tailored suit stepped out, his sharp eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on the twins. "You too," he said, his voice deep but not unkind. "Come with me." Amir immediately pulled his sister behind him, his protective instincts rising. "We didn't do anything wrong," he said cautiously, his voice trembling. The man's expression softened. "No, children, you did something very right. Someone wishes to meet you." The twins exchanged nervous glances, unsure what awaited them, yet something in the man's tone carried a promise of safety. Slowly, they followed him into the car, unaware that every mile they traveled was taking them closer to a revelation that would turn their lives upside down. When the car finally stopped in front of a massive iron gate, the children gasped. Beyond it stretched a sprawling estate with marble pillars, lush gardens, and fountains that seemed to dance with sunlight. Amina clutched her brother's hand tightly. "Amir, this can't be real," she whispered. The suited man led them inside, through corridors adorned with golden chandeliers and portraits of powerful-looking ancestors. Their footsteps echoed against polished marble until they reached the grand room where the old blind beggar from last night sat in an armchair, dressed now in an elegant robe. His face lit up when he heard their hesitant steps. "You came?" Sir Idris said softly, his voice trembling with emotion. "Children, do you recognize me?" The twins froze in shock, their eyes widening as they stared at him. Amir stammered, "Why, you're the blind man, but—" Sir Idris smiled faintly. "Yes, I am the man you gave your bread to. But I am also something else, something you could never have guessed." He paused, allowing his words to hang in the air like a secret too heavy to be spoken all at once. Sir Idris leaned forward in his chair, his clouded eyes searching their young, astonished faces as though he could still see through the fog of blindness. His voice carried both power and gentleness, the weight of countless years behind it. "I once had everything," he began slowly. "Wealth, power, influence. The world bowed to my name. But when betrayal came, when those I trusted most turned against me, I left it all behind. I wanted to know the truth of human hearts. I wanted to see if kindness still lived where wealth could not buy it." He lifted the piece of bread they had given him the night before, now wrapped carefully as though it were the most priceless treasure. "And I found it in you." Amir's chest tightened. He didn't know whether to feel pride or fear. The marble floor beneath him felt colder, heavier, as though he and his sister were too small to belong in such a grand place. "But we don't understand," he said hesitantly. "Why us? We're nobody, just hungry kids." "Precisely," Sir Idris replied, his lips curved into a weary but warm smile. "And yet, in your hunger, you chose compassion. The world is full of men and women who have much but give nothing. You, with nothing, gave your all. That, children, is greatness. Greater than gold, greater than palaces." Amina's eyes welled with tears. She tugged Amir's sleeve, whispering, "Is this real, or are we dreaming?" The suited man who had brought them there stood silently by the door, his posture straight, his face unreadable. But even he, hardened by years of service, glanced at them with softened eyes. He knew this meeting was the turning point Sir Idris had waited for. The billionaire lifted his trembling hand, and Amir instinctively stepped forward to help him. The boy's touch was gentle, steadying the old man as though strength passed from child to elder. "Tell me," Sir Idris said, his voice deepening, "what do you dream of, Amir? And you, Amina? If the world were kind, what would you ask for?" Amir's throat tightened. No one had ever asked him that. No one had cared. His dreams had always been buried beneath survival. But slowly he answered, his voice quiet but firm. "I dream that my sister never has to go hungry again, that she can sleep in a warm bed, that she can laugh without fear of tomorrow." Sir Idris nodded solemnly, turning his blind gaze toward Amina. "And you, child?" Her voice trembled. I dream of a mother's arms. But since that can't come back, I only dream of being safe. I don't want Amir to keep carrying the world on his shoulders alone." The old man's heart ached. Their words cut deeper than any dagger betrayal had in his past life. He took a slow, shuddering breath, then spoke with quiet conviction. "Then those dreams shall no longer be dreams. From this day they are promises." The twins stared at him, bewildered. Could words like that be real? The air in the room grew heavy with silence, broken only by the distant chime of a clock somewhere in the vast estate. Then Sir Idris turned his face toward the suited man. "Khaled," he commanded, his voice regaining the authority of a king in his court, "see to it that they are given everything they need. Clothes, food, tutors, doctors. From this day forward, they are no longer orphans wandering the streets. They are my children." The declaration rang like thunder. Amir's breath caught in his chest. Amina gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. They could barely process what had just been said. "But, sir," Amir stammered, "why would you adopt us? You don't even know us." Sir Idris smiled faintly, his clouded eyes glistening. "On the contrary, Amir, I know you better than most. The world shows its truest face when it is starving, when it is cold. In that darkness, I saw your light. and it is brighter than anything money can buy. Amina suddenly burst into tears, collapsing into her brother's arms. For so long, they had carried themselves with quiet strength, never allowing their pain to spill into the open. But now, in this impossible moment, her fragile walls crumbled. Amir held her tightly, his own eyes burning though he fought to stay strong. Khalid approached quietly, lowering himself to their level. "Children," he said softly, "your lives are about to change. You must be brave enough to accept it." The next days unfolded like a dream. The twins were bathed and clothed in garments softer than anything they had ever touched. For the first time in their lives, they sat at a table overflowing with food, though their hands shook, unsure if they were allowed to eat freely. Doctors examined them, finding malnourishment and scars of neglect, but promised healing. Tutors came, speaking to them gently, ready to teach letters and numbers that had once been a mystery whispered only by others. Yet through it all, the twins remained humble. Amir insisted on serving his sister first at every meal. Amina often slipped pieces of fruit into her pocket to save for later, still unable to believe food would always be there tomorrow. Sir Idris watched them with a heart that grew younger each day. Though his eyes could not see, their laughter filled the mansion with light he had not felt in decades. But more than that, their kindness reminded him of the humanity he had almost forgotten. One evening, as the golden glow of sunset spilled into the grand dining hall, Sir Idris called him to his side once more. "Children," he said quietly, "I have something to ask of you." Amir and Amina turned to him eagerly, their trust now unshakable. "My wealth, my power, my name, they mean nothing if they die with me. I have searched for heirs not of blood, but of heart. Will you, Amir and Amina, become not only my children, but the keepers of my legacy? Will you carry forward what I have built, but with the compassion you have shown me?" The twins exchanged glances, their young faces reflecting both awe and fear. Amir swallowed hard. We don't know how. We're just children." Sir Idris reached out, his trembling hand brushing their hair. "That is why I will guide you. Knowledge can be taught. Skills can be learned. But hearts like yours are born, not made. And it is hearts such as yours the world needs most." Amina's voice, still soft, carried a weight beyond her years. "If it means we can help children like us, then yes, we will." Sir Idris's lips curved into a trembling smile, his soul finally at peace with the decision he had waited so long to make. The mansion seemed to hum with new life that night, as though the very walls recognized the dawning of a new chapter. Somewhere in the silence of the city beyond, the world remained unaware of the destiny being rewritten within those gilded halls. But for Amir and Amina, two children who once believed themselves invisible, the universe had opened a door wider than they had ever dared to dream. And though they could not yet see what awaited them on the other side, they stepped closer, their small hands tightly clasped, ready to walk forward together. Would you like me to continue weaving the next 1,000 words showing how they begin adapting into this new world, the challenges they face even with wealth, and how their kindness transforms not just the billionaire's life, but the empire he entrusts them with? The seasons change, and with them, the lives of Amir and Amina blossomed into something the world could hardly believe. The mansion that had once echoed with silence now rang with laughter, footsteps, and the warmth of family. Sir Idris, though aged and blind, felt more alive than he had in decades, for he had found in the twins not only children to love, but heirs to a vision he thought he had lost. But the road was not without its storms. Wealth, once it became visible around the twins, attracted envy and whispers. Reporters prowled the gates, speculating about their sudden rise from rags to riches. Old acquaintances of Sir Idris, some greedy, others curious, reappeared to question his decision. And perhaps most difficult of all, Amir and Amina had to wrestle with the fear that they might lose themselves in this strange new world of abundance. Sir Idris, wise in the ways of power and betrayal, warned them gently. "Children," he said one evening, his hand resting on his cane as they sat before a roaring fire, "gold can blind faster than darkness. Power can corrupt faster than hunger. Do not let it. Remember the bread you gave me. That simple act is worth more than all the marble and jewels in this house. If you forget that moment, You will lose yourselves." The twins carried those words like sacred fire in their hearts. Amir, though now dressed in fine suits and learning the language of business, never let go of the boy who had once shielded his sister in the freezing night. Amina, who was taught music, art, and languages, never forgot the ache of longing she had carried when she wished only for safety. And together, they promised that their new life would not be for themselves alone. Years passed, and the world began to notice, under the quiet guidance of Sir Idris. The twins grew into young leaders who shocked the business world not only with intelligence but with compassion. They reopened abandoned factories and turned them into schools and shelters for children. They built hospitals in places where none had stood before. They launched programs to feed the hungry, each one named in memory of that single act of sharing bread. The name Amir and Amina Foundation began to echo across nations. Journalists who once doubted their rise now wrote with admiration. And yet, in interviews, Amir always said, "We are not extraordinary. We are only children who once knew hunger and never wished it for anyone else." Amina would add softly, "If kindness could save us, then kindness can save the world." Sir Idris watched this transformation with tears that his blindness could not hide. Sitting in his grand chair, he often listened to the sound of their voices addressing crowds, their speeches broadcast to the world, and he would whisper to himself, "The world will be brighter when my eyes close, for they will carry the torch." As time wove its golden thread, the inevitable moment came when Sir Idris grew friendlier, his voice quieter, his breath slower. On a night when the stars seemed especially close, he called Amir and Amina to his side. They knelt beside him, holding his hands, their eyes wet with the fear of loss. "My children," he said, his voice trembling but clear, "do not weep for me. I have lived long enough to see my greatest dream come true. I searched the world for proof that goodness still existed, and I found it in you. When I leave with peace, for my legacy is safe in your hands. Promise me only one thing, that you will never forget who you were before all this." With hearts breaking, they promised. Sir Idris smiled, his blind eyes lifting toward the heavens, as if he could see once more. "Then I can go, knowing the world is in better hands than mine." And with that final breath, he slipped quietly into eternity. The nation mourned the passing of the great billionaire. News channels across the globe broadcast his story, but it was not his empire they praised most. It was the extraordinary tale of how two homeless twins gave a blind beggar their last meal, and how that act of kindness transformed not only their fate, but the fate of countless others. At his funeral, thousands gathered, from presidents and kings to the poorest of the poor who had been touched by philanthropy. Amir and Amina stood side by side, dressed in black, their faces solemn yet radiant with resolve. Amir's voice carried across the vast crowd. "We were once children no one saw. He saw us. He gave us not only food and shelter, but faith in ourselves. Today, we vow to honor his life not with statues or riches, but by carrying forward his vision. That compassion is the highest form of wealth." Amina then stepped forward, her voice like a melody that reached even the hardest of hearts. "When we were hungry, we gave. When he was lonely, he gave. Let this be the circle that never ends, that those who receive must also give, until no child goes hungry, no soul feels forgotten, and no act of kindness is wasted." The world wept with them, but from that grief rose a movement stronger than any empire's steel or gold. Donations flooded their foundation. Volunteers from every corner of the globe joined their mission, and soon the story of Amir and Amina was told in classrooms, in books, in films, and whispered as bedtime stories to children who dreamed of a kinder world. And as the years stretched on, the twins, now leaders of a global legacy, never lost their humility. Amir would still sit with children on dusty streets, listening to their stories, sharing food with them as though he were still that boy with nothing but half a piece of bread. Amina, though adorned in elegance at international conferences, would kneel beside widows and orphans, holding their hands with the same tenderness she once longed for. One evening, long after Sir Idris's passing, they returned to the very street where their story began. The stall under which they had once slept was gone, replaced by a school they had built. Children laughed and ran through its gates, their bellies full, their futures bright. Amir and Amina stood there silently, remembering the cold, the hunger, and the blind beggar who was not a beggar at all. Amir whispered, "We kept our promise, sister." Amina squeezed his hand, tears glistening in her eyes. "Yes, and we will keep it as long as we live." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of fire and gold, their silhouettes stood tall against the light. They were no longer the forgotten children of the streets. They were beacons of hope, proof that one small act of kindness could ripple outward to change the destiny of nations. And so, the story of the homeless twins and the blind billionaire became more than just a tale. It became a testament that greatness is not measured by what we keep, but by what we give, that the smallest act of compassion can awaken miracles greater than any fortune, and that sometimes the most powerful seeds of change are planted not in palaces, but in the broken hearts of children who dare to share their last meal. Their journey was not the end of the story, but the beginning of a legend whispered in markets, written in books, and carried in the hearts of all who believed that kindness still had the power to save the world. Would you like me to expand this conclusion with more vivid cinematic imagery and dialogue between the twins as they step into global leadership, so it feels like a grand finale scene in a film for your channel?